So this is just a continuation of what you had studied in your grade 9. Okay, force and laws of motion, I guess you had studied in grade 9. So this is the continuation of it. Same concepts, little bit in depth you are going to study here. Okay, so yesterday I had shared what do I say, mind map of laws of motion. So in this chapter you'll be studying various concepts. Okay, so you'll be studying what do you mean by dynamics. Okay, what is the difference between statics and dynamics, and then what is the concept of force, what is inertia, what are the Newton's three laws, how is momentum related to second law of motion. Okay, what is impulse. Okay, and not only that, you will also be studying about friction. What do you mean by static friction, kinetic friction? Okay, then lubricating. What is that? Lubrication. Okay, that means to reduce the friction effect, you use something called as lubricants, right? So about that we'll be studying. Then also we are going to study about some illustrations based on these, different concepts of motion, of force, and also we are going to study about concurrent forces, equilibrium of concurrent forces. Okay, and the last concept that we will study here is nothing but dynamics of uniform circular motion. So in the previous class we had studied how these basically definitions are: uniform circular motion, centripetal acceleration, equations, yes. But in dynamics, how do they turn up to, right? So what are the dynamics behind this? If something has to move, what is that force which is actually causing it? Okay, so what are the causes basically that is happening in behind, so that you are getting that, you're getting that result. That all of these concepts we are going to study in this chapter. Okay, that is laws of motion. All right. So who discovered laws of motion? Who discovered laws of motion? Newton, right? So Newton was the one who discovered all the three laws of motion. If you can remember, we had studied a little bit deeper about all these scientists in chapter number 1. So I'll not be touching about scientists and all, because it's already available, it's already there, and you all know about it. But if you want, I'll just tell you a bit about them as well. Clear? So, what happened was, I'll just tell you a brief introduction about this Newton guy. So, what happened was, Newton was born in where was he born? I think he was born in Pisa, right? I think he was born in Pisa, and then he was studying at University of Padova in Italy. So what happened was, back in those days, in some year, I don't remember the year, what happened was a plague broke out. Okay, so a plague broke out, and he was a farmer's son. His dad never wanted him to get into field of research and all of that. Instead, he wanted him to be a farmer as well. But Newton was very much interested in in mathematics, and that is why he got enrolled in University of Padua. Today also in Italy, in University of Padua, a statue of him has been established even today. Okay, so what happened was, during that time a plague broke out, and that year, see, back now how we have this COVID, now since we have this distance education, you and I can study this way. But back in those days, there were no such technologies. So basically all the colleges, universities were shut. It was back in those days that Newton was actually sitting under a tree, and basically he was you know doing some observations and all that. Then later what happened? Suddenly apple fell on his head, all that stuff took place, right? Then suddenly, what is gravity, all that was discovered, right? So all this thing happened then later, laws of motion were discovered by Newton. So why does this happen? What is the cause of this to happen, right? Basically, if there is motion, what is the cause behind motion? So all this was discovered by him, and later it was again reformulated by different scientists as well. Okay, so this was just brief introduction about Newton. Okay, now what happened was, okay, now after this, after knowing about Newton, now when I'm talking about forces basically, or when I'm talking about something related to kinematics, there are two things which we need to know. What do you mean by statics, and what do you mean by dynamics? Statics and dynamics. Static means what you are actually, everything you're studying which is nothing but which is not moving. Studying about an object which is not moving, that is called as statics. Now, if I'm talking about kinematics, that if I'm talking about dynamics, if something I'm studying about some object which is in motion, okay, that is called as dynamics. Dynamics means in motion. Studying everything about the object which is in motion, that is called as dynamics. Okay, so basically basically dynamics is nothing but a branch of physics, they say. Okay, so it is basically a branch of physics that deals with motion of a body by considering the cause of the motion. So what we do is, what is the cause basically? Why did it move? What happened to it? What is the cause that is responsible for that thing to move? Okay, so all that is described in a branch of physics called as dynamics. Okay, children? So now, what is a force? What is force? Can someone tell me what is force? So in laws of motion, everything regarding force we are going to study. Can somebody tell me what is force? Give me an example to illustrate as well. What is force? Force. Everywhere we study, right? If a body has to move, right? Can it move by itself? Yes?
No.
No, it can't move, right? So there is something behind it which is making it move, right? So either you push something or you pull something. Force is nothing but what? A push or a pull, we call it, right? How many of you disagree to it? Force is nothing but you push something or you pull something. So force is nothing but a push or a pull, we call it, right? So that force is responsible for any object to move, to change its position, to change its, magnitude, to change its direction. So whenever a force is applied, three things take place, right? So what are the three things that take place? When a force is applied on any object, three things happen. First thing is, there is a change in direction, right? So there's a change in direction of motion or velocity. Velocity changes. Then when force is applied, the magnitude changes. Magnitude of a particular object changes. Then the shape changes, change in shape. Three things happen whenever we apply any kind of force, right? So whenever a force is applied on an object, okay, that means now if a ball is, continuing to be in that state itself, all right, or it's basically in a state of inertia. What is inertia? What is inertia, children? An object, okay, an object continues to be in that state only. If a ball is here, okay, suppose this is a ball here on a field, on a ground. It is here only. It is staying in a form of rest. Or if a ball is rolling, it is rolling uniformly. Okay, it is in a state of uniform motion. Until and unless one force comes and acts on it, what will happen? Suddenly its direction might change, its magnitude might change, right? And also its, what do we say? The shape also might change. Shape might change means what? Example, sponge. Okay, you compress it, what will happen? The shape of the sponge will change, right? So what you're doing basically, you're applying your muscular force to that sponge, right? The, what is that called? Loofah. Oh, the thing that you use for your body wash. What is that? Loofah, no? Loofah or fufa, something. Okay, so basically what you're doing, you're actually folding it here and there, right? So basically what is happening, there is certain force that you're applying which is changing its shape, compressing it, and in a similarly even muscular force, right? So if you have to compress the spring, and how much force you're applying to compress, if you leave it, the same force is again, it comes out from the same force, right? So basically we say that that is nothing but in case of a spring force. So basically three things take place, children, whenever we apply a certain force. First thing is it might change its direction, then it might change the magnitude, right? So then next it might also change its shape. So can someone give me an example of force wherein the direction changes, wherein the magnitude changes, and wherein the shape changes? Someone. Can someone give me an example to it? Yes? Give me an example where by applying a force you change the direction, where by applying the force you change the magnitude, and where by applying the force you change the shape. Can someone give me an example, children? Azam, can you give me an example, please? Yes, anybody. What about Dhruv, Prachita, Ethan, Varish, Rudraksh, Vidyut? Give me one example where you can say that because of applying the force, this has happened to it. One example, any one example, quickly. Why are you so silent? This is not a new concept, children. It's a very old concept. You've already studied this. It's just like a revision to you. Okay? So can you tell me, please? When do I say direction changes? You can take a football or you can take anything. Okay, like if you're going, you're going.
Collision of asteroids.
Huh, Baba?
Collision of asteroids.
Collision of asteroids.
It change paths.
Yes. So what will happen in collision of asteroids with you?
It moves away from the asteroid belt.
Exactly.
Just flies off somewhere.
And which kind of force is responsible for that? Reaction force, basically, right? So reaction force which takes place, or yeah. Then any other example for where change in direction? He said. What about magnitude? So if any two things colloid, what will happen? They may either, if it both are solid and if both are light, then both can change its, they may break. Basically, they can break. If two glass pieces collide with each other, what will happen? They both will break. Or if I take a ball, hit on the glass, what will happen? Suddenly, the magnitude of, that other object might change, right? Similarly, shape. Shape is nothing but best is knitting the dough. You're applying certain force and you're knitting the dough. Chapati atta, right? So all these are nothing but some of the examples wherein you can see, where you can experience that there is a force which is acting. Okay, children. Now, when I'm talking about force, forces are divided into two types. Okay. Basically, mostly we divide these forces into two categories. Basically, not types, two categories. Okay. First category is called as contact forces. And the second category is called as non-contact forces. Non-contact forces. So what do you mean by contact forces and non-contact forces? So contact forces basically are nothing but, now if any two objects, okay, if one object has to experience the force, the other object should come in contact with it. Then we say that yes, they are contact forces. And non-contact forces are what? See, example, gravitation. Can you see gravitation? Can you see gravitation? Do you think gravitation only acts if both are in contact with each other? No. We can't see the gravitation force, but it is felt, right? So there is force which is acting. Similarly, electromagnetic force. We can't see the movement of electric and magnetic charges, but we can only, observe them. We can feel it by the attraction of these ion fillings around it and all of that stuff. We can say that yes, there is force. There is magnetic force acting around a current carrying conductor, right? So these are nothing but what? Non-contact forces. Okay, so contact forces and non-contact forces. So in contact forces, if one object experiences a force, when the other object comes into its picture, that means, the force exerted because they both are in contact with one another, then I call them as contact forces. Example of contact forces are everything, mostly everything that we see. Now okay, now this, what is this? This tripod stand is basically standing here. Okay, it's basically standing here. Why? Because there is some contact force which is acting between the table and the tripod stand, right? So there is some contact force which is acting between it, and there's also something called as normal force which is acting right upon me, okay, or right upon this object. So there is something called as normal force or normal reaction, we call it, right? So all these different forces are acting on one certain object, basically. So those forces are called as what? Contact forces. Or muscular force. Muscular force means if I have to pull something, I will use my muscular force, right? And similarly, we have something called as the drag force, spring force. Spring force means compression and elongation. Then force of tension. What is force of tension? Tension is nothing but the internal force that is experienced by any kind of body which is compressed, right? So that is called as tension. Stress, which causes tension, basically stress and strain. So all these are nothing but what, children? Contact forces. Non-contact forces are nothing but if one object experiences a force without being in contact with the other object, then we call it as a non-contact force. Am I clear with contact and non-contact forces? Yes. So some of the examples of non-contact forces are what? Gravitational force, electromagnetic force, right? So all these are nothing but non-contact forces. Now, gravitational force is the only non-contact force that we use in our mechanics. So whenever I'm talking in mechanics, right, in terms of mechanics or dynamics, we call it as gravitation. So one major force which is non-contact and which we use it in mechanics is nothing but gravitational force. Then, yes. Now, if I'm telling contact force, that means if this is a surface, contact force means definitely it is perpendicular, right? It is perpendicular to the surface. That means they are meeting, both the surfaces are meeting at a point. So that time I call this as a contact force. But non-contact force means what, children? The component parallel to the surface in contact is nothing but what? The component. Two components are parallel to each other. So if one force is like this, the other force is like this. Okay. So one of the best example is nothing but gravitation, which we've already seen. They are parallel to each other. Now force is the cause for translatory motion. Now what is translatory motion, children? What is translatory motion? They say that force is a cause for translatory motion. Now, what is a translatory motion? Example, a train is moving in its track. Okay. Then a man walking on a road. Then also birds flying in the air. So, all these are nothing but, one second, sorry. My battery is low. Okay. So, all these are nothing but what? Translatory motion. Now, what is this translatory motion? It is nothing but relating to or involving uniform motion in one direction. Basically, translatory is nothing but it is involving uniform motion in one single direction. That is called as translatory motion. So, force is a cause for translatory motion. If it has to go in a one-dimensional motion, yes, there is force that is acting, such that it goes in one-dimensional motion. Okay, so that means what? Force is also responsible for translatory motion. Then next, so force is measured. What is force, children? How is force measured? Let us study the units of force. Is it a vector quantity or a scalar quantity and all of that? Okay. So force was given by Newton. So definitely the SI unit of force is what? Newton. Okay. Symbol is N. Okay. And also we know something that it is measured. What is the formula for force? Mass into acceleration. Mass is nothing but kg. Acceleration is nothing but change in velocity divided by time. So this is kg. Velocity is nothing but what? Meter per second. That is time into time as it is. So it will become kg meter per second square. So therefore the SI base units is nothing but what? SI base unit of force is nothing but kg meter per second square. Right? Am I right? Yes? We had already studied this in units and dimensions. Now, what is the dimensional formula of force? Dimensional formula for force? We always write dimensional formula in the form of mass, length and time. Right? So, mass, kg. So, kg is nothing but mass raised to 1. Length is meter. So, length raised to 1. Kg per second square. So, t raised to minus 2. So, this is the dimensional formula for force as well. Clear? Clear? So, these are some of the important terms that you need to know. And force is what? Is it a scalar quantity or a vector quantity? Is force a scalar quantity or a vector quantity? Yes? Force is a vector quantity. Okay? Force is a vector quantity. Why is it a vector quantity, children? Why is it a vector quantity? Because look here. Force is equal to mass into acceleration. Acceleration is a vector quantity, right? It is directly proportional to acceleration. Or momentum. Change in momentum gives rise to acceleration. right? What is momentum? What is linear momentum? When we are dealing with laws of motion, I'll teach you one by one. Okay, so what is linear motion? What is linear momentum? How is it related to Newton's second law of motion? By using linear momentum, how do we define Newton's second law of motion? Then how this second law becomes Newton's first law? Then what is the third law of motion? What is law of inertia? All that. It's a very interesting and easy chapter. Okay, so all that we will look into now. Clear? So as acceleration is a vector quantity, force is also a vector quantity. Am I clear? Understood dimensions about force, why is it a vector quantity and all of that? Yes? Yes?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, let us know something about inertia. Okay, children. Inertia. Now, inertia. What is inertia? What is inertia? Now see, what happens is you are going in a car. Okay? You are going in a car, suddenly brakes are applied. What would happen? You would go front and come back again, right? You would go front, suddenly brakes are up. You're going in a uniform motion, right? But see, if sudden force is applied, what will happen? You will go front, but because you have inertia, you'll come back again. That is nothing but inertia. Tendency, basically a tendency. That means something which will continue to be in that state itself, right? So that is called as inertia. A body continues to be in that state. If it is in a state of rest, it will be in state of rest only. That means it has certain inertia. That is why its tendency is to stay at rest. But if it is moving, if a body is moving, okay, so if I'm rolling a ball, it is rolling in same uniform motion. It is rolling. Why? Because it has certain inertia. Until and unless one force comes and acts on it, right? So it's a tendency to remain in that particular state as well, as of what it is basically staying in. Okay, so that is called as inertia. Am I clear with inertia? What is inertia? Can someone define an example for inertia? Can someone tell me an example? Any example, like how I have given you. You can give your own example for inertia.
Like leaves falling from a tree.
What is falling, Baba? Leaves falling from a tree.
Leaves falling from a tree.
Yes. So how is inertia applied there? So leaf might be falling until and unless we neglect the air resistance, right? So until and unless the air resistance is neglected. Definitely. Good, Prachita. Next, any other this thing, children? Any other example? Okay, now what happens is cyclist. Okay, now cyclist, basically he is driving his cycle, and when he's taking turn, he has to lean one side, right? He has to lean one side and turn. Yes or no? If he's straight and if he's doing like this, will he turn? Will he turn? Why does he have to bend like that? Because of inertia. That means he has to overcome the law of inertia. That's why he continues to be in that state only. Right? So this is also one of the example. One of the best examples is brake, which is applied. So Prachita also gave a good example on inertia, right? So there are many ways that we see that inertia is present. Now, basically your book is basically in that state only until and unless you lift your book up with your muscular force, right? So whenever you're talking in physical terms, whenever you're talking physics, every object that you see, you have to start imagining in your mind as to what laws are getting applied. Now I'm moving this thing, right? Now if I'm opening the door, what am I doing basically? There is some rotation happening. So there is angular momentum involved, right? So all these things should come into your picture, children. So that's when you learn, when you talk physics, right? So that's how you learn them as well. Okay, so yes, so inertia is nothing but the inherent property of the object with a body to resist any change in its motion. It doesn't want to change, it wants to be as it is until and unless one unbalanced force comes and acts. It's like, you leave now, enough of your drama, I want to take over. Okay, so until and unless that unbalanced force comes into picture. What do you mean by unbalanced force? What are balanced and unbalanced force? What do you mean by balanced and unbalanced force? Have you played tug of war? Have all of you played tug of war? Tug of war?
Yes, ma'am.
You have played, right? So basically what you're doing is, there are three people here, there are three people here. Okay, now suppose you are applying 200 Newton on both the sides. The opposite party is also applying a force of 200 Newton. Okay, now suppose this is a tug of war, rope of tug of war. Here there are three people who are standing. Okay, here there are also three people who are standing. Okay, now all of them are basically pulling. Here these three people are applying force of 200 Newton on this rope. Okay, and here also these three people are also applying 200 Newton force on this rope. Where do you think the rope will go? It will go this side or this side? What will be the resultant force which is acting here? Is any force greater? Is any force greater? Is 200 greater than 200? Or 200 greater than 200 here? No. So resultant force is given by whatever. Suppose I am taking this as A. Okay, this force is A and this force is B. So resultant force is nothing but A minus B, or the bigger force minus smaller force. So bigger force and smaller force both are 200 only, no? There is no bigger, there is no smaller here. Right? So both are 200, 200. So if I am subtracting, then I get 0. So there is no resultant force at all. So there is zero resultant force. That means the force is balanced. It does not change its position. It does not change its motion. Right? So that force which balances both the parties, that is called as what? Balance force. Right? So here net resultant force what is acting will always be 0. Best example is tug of war. Okay? So now what do you mean by unbalanced force, children? Unbalanced force is nothing but, now suppose these three people are applying a force of 400 Newton instead of 300 Newton. And here they are applying again 200 Newton. So which force is greater? 400 or 200? Which force is greater? 400 is greater, right? So this rope, who will pull it better? These people will pull more or these people will pull them? Yes. Yes, exactly. So these people will pull them. So therefore, by how much will they pull? A minus B. That means 400 minus 200. 200 Newton more force they will pull them. Understood? So this means unbalanced force comes into picture here. Unbalanced force. Okay, that's when we say yes, that there is unbalanced force which is acting in between both of them. Clear? So any body continues to be in that state of rest or uniform motion until and unless one force acts upon it is nothing but what? Newton's first law of motion. Newton's first law of motion. Okay? So any kind of body continues to be in that state of rest. So if a ball is moving, it will be moving only. Right? If something is moving round, it will be moving only. Until and unless I take one more ball, hit it with one more ball, that ball comes in contact with the other ball and the other ball changes its direction and starts moving. Right? So that is called as what? Newton's first law of motion. Okay, so a body continues to be in that state of rest or a uniform motion until and unless one external unbalanced force comes into picture. Am I clear? Understood? Understood what do you mean by first law of motion? Understood, children? Understanding what I'm trying to say you? Yes? Okay, so that is called as nothing but, yes, so that is basically first law of motion. Now, to define first law of motion, we need to know something. We need to know some terms, okay? To know it much deeper, some terms we need to know. Now, what do you mean by frame of reference? We need to know what do you mean by frame of reference. And we also need to know what do you mean by inertial frame of reference. Inertial frame of reference. Now what is frame of reference, children? Can someone tell me what is frame of reference? What is frame of reference? Reference. The word itself says a frame of reference. Now, suppose there is a school. This is your school and this is your home. Okay? Now, with reference to your home, you say your school is 2 kilometers north. Okay? Now, with reference to your school, you say your home is 2 kilometers north or south? South, right? So basically, frame of reference is a arbitrary set of axes. We take any three axes, okay? So this frame only I'll divide this into X frame, Y frame, Z frame. Okay, so it's nothing but a frame of axes in which any position, suppose there are three axes here, okay? X axis, Y axis and Z axis. From this origin or the frame, whatever the object is moving, that can be defined based on this origin. So if it is here, with reference to this point is here. With reference to this point is here. With reference to this point is here. So basically, we define any kind of object which is in motion by looking at what kind of frame of reference does it actually, what reference frame is it actually situated in. So that is called as frame of reference. So frame of reference is nothing but we say that an arbitrary set of axes with reference to which the position or motion of something is described. We either define its position or we also describe its motion, right? So position or motion is described. Then and definitely all this can be formulated by what? Physical laws of motion. Okay, so this is called as what? Frame of reference. Now, what do you mean by inertial frame of reference? Inertial frame of reference? Frame of reference with respect to inertia of the body. Okay, or we can say that it's a frame of reference which is not undergoing any kind of acceleration. So, if I have inertia, that means I cannot undergo any kind of acceleration. In inertial frame, acceleration is zero. Why? Because inertia can only be defined for uniform motion. Uniform motion, not accelerated. Okay? So, wherever there is inertia, acceleration is zero. So, I can say that inertial frame of reference is a frame of reference wherein it is not accelerated. That means acceleration is zero. That means if you have an accelerator with you and if you're going in a inertial frame of reference, accelerator will show zero. That means there's no acceleration at all. Okay? So, that is called as what? Inertial frame of reference. Am I clear? Understood what you mean by frame of reference and inertial frame of reference? Is it clear to you? Clear, children? Any doubts still here? Any doubts still here? Dhruv? Like, if you had to stop a bike or a cycle. Okay, so you are standing and bike and cycle are coming this way. So definitely I would prefer stopping cycle rather than bike, right? Because bike's mass is greater than cycle and even it's going with a velocity which is much greater than cycle. So momentum is nothing but mass into velocity. Momentum. Okay, now one more thing is momentum is what, children? It's like if I take a big ball and if I throw at Vidyut, what will happen to him? Would he be like, nothing, it just a sponge hit him? Or how would he feel like? What would happen to you with you? If I take a big ball and if I throw at you? Yes? What would
Depends
happen?
on what the ball is made of.
Yes. Can you repeat? Can you tell again? Come again?
Depends on what kind of ball it is.
Suppose if I'm taking if I'm taking a big metal ball, suppose, what would happen? If I throw at you to catch, what would happen?
Either he'll catch it or it might fall on his body.
Exactly. Right. So either he might catch it. If he's catching it, he will definitely go behind. Right? Because it's a metal ball. So if somebody just does like this, I'll feel like if somebody hits me up, then I would definitely feel that mass and that velocity at a greater speed, right? So basically that is called as what, children? Momentum. Momentum is nothing but product of mass and velocity. With what? Greater the mass, greater the momentum. Greater the velocity, greater the momentum. Like, see, cricket ball is there, no? Cricket ball. If I hit, see, cricket ball is small. It has smaller mass. But if I throw it with a greater velocity, again it would produce the same impact. Okay, so momentum is nothing but what? It is basically impact that I'm talking in terms of mass and velocity. Okay, the impact that is produced by the body which is in contact with it, the reaction that is experienced by the body when it comes and hits to me. Okay, the what force it hits, basically, that is nothing but what? The impact basically is called as momentum, which is nothing but mass into velocity. Okay, now to define Newton's second law of motion, we use something called as momentum. Okay, so linear momentum is nothing but the product of mass and the product of body's mass and the velocity. Okay, where m is nothing but mass, p is equal to m into v. It is a vector quantity. Why? Because velocity is a vector quantity. So momentum is also a vector quantity, right? And also the SI unit of momentum is nothing but mass is in kg. Okay. Then velocity is what, children? Velocity is meter per second. Correct? So its SI unit in terms of base unit is kg meter per second. Okay. This is nothing but the in SI unit in terms of base units for momentum. And also the dimensional formula. Dimensional formula for momentum is what? Can you guess? MLT. M raised to, because there is kg, so m raised to 1, L raised to 1, T raised to minus 1. This is the dimensions of momentum or linear momentum. Okay, now using this concept, we will derive Newton's second law of motion. Newton's second law of motion. Okay, now suppose a mass, one object is there. It has some mass m. One object, it has certain mass m. It is moving along a straight line. It is moving along a straight line. Okay, it has certain initial velocity u. This object has certain initial velocity u. Okay, then it is uniformly accelerated. So uniformly we accelerated, and therefore its velocity here becomes final v. That is mass into final velocity. This mass will have a final velocity once it's accelerated. Then, okay, now how do you think that it will be accelerated? Only if you apply some external force to it, right? Only if I apply certain external force to this mass, then definitely it will change its velocity, and final velocity we will get here. Mass into velocity, right? So, what we'll do is, throughout at some time t, when we are considering at some time t, t is nothing but what? The mass or velocity of the object, it is traveling from one point to other object in certain time t. Now, what we'll do is, basically there is change in momentum, right? So, there is momentum here, P is equal to m into u. There is momentum here. Suppose if I am taking this as P1 and if I am taking this as P2, right? So, what is the final momentum experienced here? M into V, final velocity V, correct? So, what I'll do now is, I have to know what is the change in momentum that is felt by the object. So, initially it had certain momentum. Finally, when force was applied to it, by the application of force, yes, it has changed its velocity, and therefore we say that there is a change in momentum, right? So, change in momentum is nothing but what, children? P2 minus P1, correct? Now, there is time factor which is involved here, right? So, if I'm talking about time factor, then instead of change of momentum, I have to apply what? Rate of change of momentum. So, if change of momentum is P2 is nothing but what? mv minus P1 is nothing but what? mu. So, therefore, this will be what? M into V minus U. This is nothing but change in momentum. Now, rate of change of momentum. Okay, so change of momentum when time factor is involved, then at what rate the momentum is changing? Rate of change of momentum is nothing but change of momentum mv minus u divided by t. At what particular time interval? M into V minus u divided by t. Right? So, rate of change of momentum. When do you see that the momentum is changed? Only when a force is applied to it. Correct? So, rate of change of momentum gives rise to what? Force. And this force is directly proportional to mv minus u divided by t. Yes or no, children? Yeah? So, now what I'll do is, I don't want proportionality sign. Instead, I will remove the proportionality sign and I'll put a proportionality constant k. K is nothing but one proportionality constant. Okay, so yes. So therefore, what I'll do, F is equal to K M into V minus U divided by T. Alright, now we know something. What do we know? F is equal to K M into initial velocity minus final velocity divided by time gives me what? What is change in velocity by time? What is change in velocity? Gives rise to acceleration. So F is equal to Km into A, where if I put constant of proportionality as 1, then we get F is equal to mass into acceleration. So using this linear momentum concept, we have found what is Newton's second law of motion. That is F is equal to M into A, right? So therefore we say Newton's second law of motion states that the rate of change of momentum is directly proportional to the applied force, which is the rate of change of momentum is directly proportional to the applied force, and it takes place in the direction of the force. So if force is applied from this side, so yes, the rate of change of momentum is in this direction itself. The force where we apply, direction where we apply the force, in the same direction there is a rate of change of momentum itself. So that is nothing but what? The second law of motion. Newton's second law of motion. Am I clear? Yes? Am I clear, children? Yes? Did you understand how did we get Newton's second law of motion?
Yes,
so, Newton's second law of motion is nothing but rate of change of momentum is directly proportional to the applied force. How much force I am applying, and that force is nothing but the change in momentum is directly proportional to the applied force, and it goes in the direction of the force itself. Okay, so that is nothing but what? Newton's second law of motion. Clear? Okay, so what is linear momentum? Can someone tell me what is momentum now? What is linear momentum? Yes. Now to illustrate this, we have an example. Okay. Now suppose, there is a car. Okay. There is a car. Okay. There is a car, and suppose it is at rest. There is one person who is trying to push it. Okay. Pushing. Now it has certain mass and it has certain initial velocity, suppose. Okay. Now what will happen is it will only break this inertia until and unless what? External force comes into picture, right? So he's applying force. At one point the car changes its momentum. That means it starts moving with certain, after overcoming that initial velocity, it starts moving again, right? So it gains certain final velocity v, right? So you see at certain time, some time is collapsed there, right? So some time is collapsed there. So after some time only there is a rate of change of momentum. And why there is a change in momentum of these from this to here? It had to move. Why is there a change in momentum? Because the force is acting on this. Force from this man is acting on this car. Okay, so that is why we say that yes, there is a rate of change of momentum. Okay, and that rate of change of momentum is directly proportional to what force we are acting on it. Clear? So that is nothing but what, children? It is due to Newton's second law of motion. Now, Newton's second law of motion can become Newton's first law if force is absent. Okay, if I don't have any force, if force is 0, then definitely acceleration is 0. There is no acceleration, right? If force has to take place, that means what? Acceleration should be there. So, because of acceleration, because of force, we have acceleration. If there's no force, there's no acceleration, right? So, that time what happens? Newton's second law will become Newton's first law. Newton's second law will become what? Newton's first law of motion. That means a body will continue to be in that state only, a state of rest or a uniform motion until and unless an external force acts upon it. Clear? Is this concept clear to you all? Yes? Yes? Yes or no, children? Did you understand what is Newton's second law? Merrick understood Newton's second law? Okay. Now, after knowing about Newton's second law, you all know what is Newton's third law. Can someone tell me what is Newton's third law? What is Newton's third law, children?
To every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction.
Very good. To every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction, they say. Right? So that means everybody has seen the example of a gun getting fired from a bullet, right? So I actually, when I'm firing it, okay, that is the action. I will go back. My hand will go back once I fire that. That means what? It is reaction. So action and reaction are equal. That means with what force I'm firing, the same force I am getting back also. But they are opposite in direction, right? So if I'm firing from this angle, the reaction is in the opposite direction. So we say that action and reaction are equal, but they are opposite. Okay, so that gives us what? Newton's third law of motion. Clear? Understood what is Newton's third law of motion, children? To every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. If body A, if there's A, this body, if it is, okay, now example is, if I'm going and, just pushing, just getting, like, what, just falling on this wall. I am applying a force on this wall. Don't you think that force for this wall is also applying a force on me? Yes? Is it not applying a reaction force to me back? Right? So basically, I am giving the action. I am going and falling on this wall. The wall is also falling. I mean, it is giving me a push basically, right? So there is a force which is experienced by the wall to me as well. Right? Contact force. So I say that yes, there is Newton's third law which is verified. That is nothing but what? If to every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. Clear? Now after knowing about Newton's third law, the next thing what we have to know is impulse. Okay? What do you mean by impulse? Linear momentum, I thought, yes. Impulse. Now, impulse is nothing but forces acting for a short duration are called as impulsive forces. Okay? They are nothing but forces which act to a very short duration. Forces which act on a short duration. Forces which act for a very short duration. For a short duration. They are called as impulsive forces. Okay, what are these forces called as, children? Impulsive forces. They are called as impulsive forces. Okay, now we see that impulse is defined as the product of force and the small time interval for which it acts. Okay, so basically impulse, I write this impulse as I, is nothing but integration of F into dt. Small force at what that small time it acts, right? So at the time t. So impulse is nothing but forces which act for a very small duration of time. And that is nothing but what? F into dt. Now again, impulse of a force is a vector quantity. Why? Because yes, force is a vector quantity. So impulse of a force is also a vector quantity. Okay, then if a force of an impulse is changing with time, suppose this force is changing with respect to time, then what do I say? The impulse is measured by finding the area. So if I'm writing, the area between force, if I'm taking time and force, how much force is applied in this time? Okay, so whatever I get area under the curve, no? So suppose 1 Newton, 2 Newton, 3 Newton is applied in 1 second, 2 second, 3 second, 4 second. Whatever curve I get, this curve, area under the curve represents impulse. Understood? Okay, so if I'm telling that, if a force of an impulse is changing with time, so force is changing with respect to time, then definitely I'll say that the impulse is measured by finding the area that is bound in the force time graph is that of the force. Okay, so this is basically the impulse we are talking about. Now, impulse of a force for a given time is equal to total change in momentum of the body during the given time. So, how much change in momentum, total change in momentum has occurred? Okay, so that gives what? That gives the impulse. Okay, or impulse in a time t. Now, suppose from time t1 to t2, there is a change in momentum from p1 to p2. Then we say that impulse is nothing but what? Area under, that means very small change from T1 to T2, okay? F into dt, right? So this integration of F into dt is nothing but what? At time from T1 to T2 gives rise to change in momentum, that is P1 to P2 to P1. So that is nothing but what? P2 minus P1, which gives us impulse. Okay. So if there are two time intervals, and if I am finding the impulse, so impulse of a force for that time is equal to what? Total change in its momentum. We say that there is a total change in its momentum of the body during that time. That is T1 to T2. Clear? Am I clear, children? Clear with what do you mean by impulse? Any doubts still here? Is this concept clear? What is impulse? Can someone define what is impulse? What is impulse?
The force which acts for a short duration.
That is called as impulse. Okay, so whenever we have force and time graph, whatever the area under the curve you get, it gives rise to impulse. Okay, now the next concept is nothing but law of conservation of momentum. Law of conservation of momentum. Have you studied this earlier? Law of conservation of momentum. What do you mean by law of conservation, children? Law of conservation means what? You are conserving one physical quantity. What is a physical quantity? Any quantity which can be measured is called as a physical quantity, right? So, you are conserving that quantity. That means whatever before it is, same after the reaction also you will get the same result. That is called as conserving. There is no change. It may change its form, right? The forms might change. But there is no change in basically the particles or whatever you have considered as. Okay, so it might change. Now, if I'm talking about mechanical energy, petrol. Okay, so petrol is nothing but what? Chemical energy to mechanical energy. Okay, so how much ever I have put the chemical, it has just changed its form. That means from chemical energy, it has become what? Mechanical energy. That means we run our bikes, we run our cars, right? Why? Because that chemical energy has turned to. But do you think that there is a change there in those components? No. In the reactant side, there is no change. But only the form has changed, right? Only the form has changed. So basically what we are talking is, this is nothing but conservation. Okay. Now how is conservation of, what do you mean by conservation of momentum? How is momentum conserved? That we are going to check out now. Okay. Conservation of momentum. Yes. Yeah. Now what happens is, suppose two objects we have. Alright. Now if I am considering this object of mass A and this object of mass B, both of them are going with initial velocity. This is going with initial velocity UA and this is going with certain initial velocity UB. Some initial velocity both are going. Okay. Now at certain time interval, we take some time. Okay, at certain time interval it is going. Now what happens is, at one point this initial velocity of A exceeds the initial velocity of B. At one point what will happen is, this mass will collide with this mass. So MA will collide with MB. Okay, once it collides, we say that there is a force which acts from mass A to mass B, that is given by FAB. Okay, similarly, B also exerts. See, action and reaction are equal and opposite. So if A is exerting a mass A to B on the object B, then definitely object B is also exerting what? Equal and opposite force on mass A, right? So FBA, it is also, that means force exerted from A to B is same as force exerted by B to A, but in the opposite direction, right? So this is nothing but, let us consider this as equation number 1. Okay, now what happens is, This thing we have learned. Now, once they collide, again they start going with some final velocity. So they have collided. Now again this mass goes with some final velocity VA, and again this is mass A. Again mass B, MB, goes again with some final velocity VB. They continue going, right? Now, conservation of momentum is the momentum, that is mass into velocity. Whatever initial velocity it was going before, is this velocity, mass into velocity, that is momentum. Momentum before collision, is it same momentum after collision? Once it's collided, is it same that time? That is what is nothing but what? Conservation of linear momentum. Okay, so to check out, what will we do is, we know what is the force, children? FAB is nothing but what? Mass into velocity, right? Mass into velocity. Now, if I'm talking about force experienced by object A, force experienced by object A is nothing but what? MA into VA minus UA at a certain time interval T. Okay. Now, similarly, we know that force B, force experienced, force that means from B to A, force of B is nothing but what? MB into VB minus UB divided by T at a certain time interval. Correct? So, what can we do now? Or let me take this as force AB and force BA. Now, according to equation 1, let me equate them. Okay, let me equate them. So, I get FAB is what here? FAB is MA into VA minus UA divided by T is equal to minus of MB into VB minus UB, no? Final velocity minus initial velocity. That is VB minus UB divided by T. Okay, so this would be what, children, now? This should be T will get cancelled. Okay, that means MA into VA minus UA is equal to minus of MB into VB minus UB. Yes? Yes? So this would be what? This would be MA into VA, MA VA minus MA into UA is equal to minus MB VB. Minus MB VB minus into minus is plus MB UB. MB UB. Now bring all the initial velocities to one side, all the final velocities to the other side. So what will happen? Now this is MAVA, no? So let me write MAVA as it is. Okay. Now minus MBVB, you bring it this side because I'm equating all the initial velocities to one side and final velocities to the other side. So bring this here. It will become plus MBVB is equal to MBUB. Now, minus MAUA, if it will go here, it will become plus MAUA. So, can you see here, children, what has happened? This is nothing but what? Momentum after collision is equal to what? Momentum before collision. So, this is nothing but what? Conservation of linear momentum. So, linear momentum before collision is same as linear momentum after collision. So, basically what we are trying to say is that whatever the mass was before collision is same, whatever momentum it was carrying, these masses were carrying, is same the mass after collision as well. So, okay. So, one of the best example is nothing but tension force as well. Tension force. What is this tension force? Tension force is when a body of mass m is fastened with a string, then the weight of the body acts downwards while the force acts opposite to the downward force. For balancing the downward force, this is nothing but what? Tension, they say, right? So there is some balancing. I have some object here, and I have put some mass, and I'm hanging here. Okay, so this force is basically it is basically balancing the upward force as well. Correct? So here I see that this string has some tension, we call it. So that is nothing but tension force. One more example is spring force. Now spring force is how much I compress it. If I leave, how much force I have taken to compress is the same force that it has taken to elongate back. Right? So here again, what? Conservation of linear momentum is applied. Clear, children? Am I clear? Understood with these concepts? Any doubts till here? Conservation of linear momentum. Till here, any doubts? Okay, so in the next class, we will start with the equilibrium of concurrent forces. What do you mean by friction? lot of things about friction. What do you mean by static friction, kinetic friction? Then what else? Limiting friction, angle of friction. Okay, rolling friction, angular response. And then we have dynamics of uniform circular motion, and then numericals. Got it? Am I clear? Is the concept clear to you? All of you? Is the concept clear to you,
Yes, ma'am.
children? Understood? Do you
Yes,
want me to repeat something to you? Is the concept clear to everybody? All of you? With youth? Understanding, Baba? Okay. Now, what happens is, let this be a rocket. Okay. And we have fired the rocket, suppose. This is going with velocity v. Okay. And definitely v dash. Now, what is this v dash? V dash be the velocity of the fuel. Now, this is fuel which is ejecting out. So, let this v dash be nothing but velocity of fuel. Okay. So, let the rocket of mass m1. Now, this is a rocket. Let it have a mass m1. Okay. And, let the rocket of mass m1 be fired with a velocity v. Let the rocket of mass m1 be fired with velocity. With certain velocity we will fire it. Okay. And with which velocity it is going? With velocity v. Okay. Then here no external force is acting. There is no external force. So therefore we say that it is a case of linear momentum. F is equal to 0. Okay. Now we apply the law of conservation of linear momentum. That means final momentum after firing is same as initial momentum before firing, we say. If F external force is 0, then we say that momentum final is equal to momentum initial. That means momentum after firing is same as momentum before firing. Okay. Now, that means final momentum after firing. Final momentum after the rocket is fired, after firing, is equal to what? Initial momentum before we fire the rocket, before firing the rocket. Okay. Now, let the mass of the fuel be m2. Now, let this mass, whatever we have rocket mass as m1, this fuel mass, let it be m2. Okay. So, let the mass of fuel be m2. Okay. Then what can we write, children? We can write that, as P final is equal to P initial. So therefore we can write that initial momentum means what? Velocity is 0 before firing. It has not changed, right? So initial momentum will become 0. Why? V is 0 initially, correct? So what will be the final momentum? Mass of the rocket into mass of the velocity of the rocket plus mass of the gas into velocity of the gas is 0, right? So therefore we can say that the momentum is conserved. So therefore P is equal to constant, which is conserved. Momentum is conserved. Therefore we say that momentum of the rocket and fuel on firing is 0. So it possesses 0 momentum. So therefore momentum of rocket and fuel on firing is 0. Hence the proof. Okay. So whenever they give you what is the linear momentum of rocket on escaping the gases of firing? 0. 0. How? This explanation. Got it? Understood? Am I clear with the application of linear momentum? Am I clear, children? Understanding? 1 second. Yes. So what I was telling, now let a particle be in uniform motion or even if it is at rest. Okay. So it has lot of forces which are acting on it. So such forces which are acting on the same particle are called as concurrent forces. To describe concurrent forces, let us consider one particle P. Okay. So this particle P experiences a force F1 and F2. This particle is said to be in equilibrium. When do I say if it is in equilibrium? If the final force that is acting on this particle, that is F1 plus F2, will give me 0. Okay, F1 plus F2 should give me 0. So therefore we say for the equilibrium condition for concurrent forces, we know that F1 plus F2 is equal to 0. So therefore F1 should be minus F2. Then I say that yes, these equilibrium. So this is the condition for any particle of concurrent forces to be in equilibrium. Okay, so whatever force, one force is applied, it should be equal in magnitude but opposite in direction to the other side. That is when you say that the forces cancel out each other and the particle is in equilibrium. Am I clear, children? Okay, now there are certain conditions that you need to know. Okay, so how do we say that they cancel out each other and they are in equilibrium? Okay, we will apply what? We will take these forces in a plane, okay, and we will apply parallelogram law, get what is the resultant, check what is it satisfying, and then we can say that it is in equilibrium. Okay, so there are some conditions that we have to know. Conditions. Okay, now, yeah. Conditions are, now let me again consider this particle P. It has force F1 and it has one more force F2. Okay, so F1 and F2 are two different forces which are acting on this particle P. Okay, now if two forces F1 and F2 act on the particle, then they will be in equilibrium. Why? When will they be in equilibrium? If the first condition F1 is equal to minus F2. This is the first condition. Okay, they should satisfy this condition. Then, second condition is, now if I'm considering two forces, okay, so suppose this is a particle P, this is force F1 and this is force F2. These are two forces, okay. Now, yes, so if there are okay, let me not consider two, let me consider three forces, F1, F2 and F3. Three concurrent forces are here, okay. They will be in equilibrium when the resultant of two forces are equal and opposite to the third force. Okay, if there are n number of forces present, two forces I know that F1 should be equal to minus F2, then I will say that yes, they are concurrent forces and they are in equilibrium. But if there are three forces or more than three forces, okay, so let this be a particle P. Suppose three forces are acting on a plane. Okay, at this point P, it is experiencing three forces. Now what will happen is, now the sum of two forces should give me equal and opposite force, that is F3. So resultant, that is sum of F1 and F2, should give me minus F3. Then I say that yes, this is a condition of equilibrium of concurrent forces. But how am I going to do that? Okay, now what we will do is, I will just extend this, let me just name them, okay children. So let me name this as O, let me name this as OA, B and C. Let me just extend this up, okay, and let me write this as C dash. Okay, let me join both of them. Join. So what I'll do here, let me apply the parallelogram law of forces. Okay, so according to parallelogram law, what will I get? Parallelogram law. So we know that according to the law of parallelogram, the resultant will be what? F1 plus F2. Correct? The resultant force will be what? F1 plus F2. This is F1 and this is F2. So the resultant will be what? F1 plus F2. Correct? So according to parallelogram law, what do we know? That OA plus OB is equal to what? OC dash. Correct? Now what I'll do, I will add OC on both the sides of this equation. Let this be equation number 1. Adding OC. See, this is OC dash. This is the resultant what we are talking about. But this is OC, no? So we have not still considered what is our force F3. So let me add OC on both the sides. Adding OC on both the sides. So I'll get what? OA plus OB plus OC is equal to OC dash plus OC. So what is OA? OA is nothing but F1 plus OB is F2 plus OC is F3 is equal to, what is OC dash, children? OC dash, OC dash is nothing but what? Now if this is F3, then OC dash will be what? Minus F3, right? Minus F3 plus F3 will get cancelled. So this is a condition of equilibrium, right? So F1 plus F2 plus F3 is equal to 0. Hence we got that yes, these forces, that means all the three forces are in equilibrium. Okay, so if you consider n number of forces as well. So okay, so if I'm considering F1, F2, F3, so on up to Fn, all of them will, they cancel out each other. That means they'll be negative. That means the third force will be the negative of the first two forces. That is when we say that yes, F1, F2, F3, so on up to Fn is equal to 0. This is the condition for equilibrium of concurrent forces. So where did this end now? We know that F1 plus F2 plus F3 is equal to 0, right? So F1 plus F2 will be what? F1 plus F2 will be
Minus F3.
minus F3. So we got the condition of equilibrium of concurrent forces. So we say that three concurrent forces are in equilibrium when the resultant of any two, of them is equal to the opposite of the third one. So I say that yes, it is in equilibrium, and